Most people believe that financial change requires years of discipline, perfect timing, or circumstances beyond their control. This belief keeps them waiting for external conditions to improve, while their internal state remains the true obstacle. What I have observed across countless lives is this: the mind governs perception, and perception governs which opportunities you recognize, which risks you evaluate clearly, and which possibilities you dismiss before they ever take form. The shift you seek does not require decades. It requires one day of honest awareness and deliberate realignment of thought. Today, I will show you how to interrupt the mental patterns that have kept you financially stagnant, and how to activate the clarity that precedes every meaningful change. I am Monk Jin, and today we discuss a truth that many discover too late in life. Financial struggle does not always emerge from lack of effort or intelligence. It arises from a hidden source that most people never examine: the quality and direction of their inner life. You have accumulated years of experience, yet you may still feel stuck in patterns that repeat themselves despite your best intentions. This is not weakness. This is the natural consequence of operating from an unexamined internal state. The mind shapes perception, and perception determines which opportunities you see, which risks you take, and which possibilities you dismiss before they fully form. Most financial education focuses on external mechanics, budgets, investments, strategies. These tools matter, but they rest on unstable ground when the mind beneath them remains clouded by fear, doubt, or unresolved beliefs. I have observed this pattern across countless lives. The person who earns well but cannot hold on to wealth. The person who sees opportunity everywhere yet never moves. The person who works tirelessly but feels poorer each year. These outcomes reflect internal conditions more than external circumstances. If you wish to change your financial reality, you must first examine the mental and emotional terrain from which all your decisions emerge. This is where real transformation begins. Not in the marketplace, not in the next opportunity, but in the quiet space where you meet yourself honestly and decide what you will carry forward and what you will finally release. Desire alone does not create change. You want financial security. You want freedom from anxiety. You want the dignity of knowing you can handle what life presents. These wants are valid, but they do not automatically translate into aligned action. In fact, many people discover that their strongest desires exist alongside equally powerful internal resistances. You say you want wealth, but a part of you believes wealthy people are corrupt. You say you want opportunity, but a part of you fears visibility and judgment. You say you want change, but a part of you clings to familiar struggle because it feels safer than the unknown. This internal contradiction is not hypocrisy. It is the natural result of carrying multiple, often conflicting, beliefs formed across different stages of life. A childhood experience taught you that money causes conflict. An early failure taught you that ambition leads to disappointment. A cultural message taught you that wanting more is selfish. These beliefs do not disappear simply because you consciously decide to think differently. They operate beneath awareness, shaping your emotional responses and behavioral patterns. When opportunity appears, the fearful part speaks louder than the hopeful part. When risk presents itself, the protective part overrides the courageous part. This is why effort alone often fails. You're not lazy or incapable. You are divided. The mind pulls in opposing directions, and that internal tension drains energy that could otherwise move toward constructive action. Financial alignment begins when you recognize this division and address it directly, rather than pretending it does not exist. Let me clarify what we mean when we speak of activating the mind to manifest money within 24 hours. This is not magic. This is not a promise that wealth will appear simply because you think positive thoughts. That kind of thinking insults your intelligence and leads only to disappointment. What can shift in 24 hours is your mental orientation, the quality of your awareness, the clarity with which you perceive yourself and your circumstances. These internal changes create immediate effects on behavior, communication, and decision-making. When you release a limiting belief, you suddenly notice opportunities you previously overlooked. When you regulate emotional reactivity, you make better choices under pressure. When you realign your identity with responsibility rather than victimhood, you take actions you previously avoided. This is the real meaning of rapid mental shift. Not that money falls from the sky, but that you become capable of recognizing and responding to what is already present around you. Many people spend years waiting for external conditions to improve, while their internal state remains unchanged. This ensures continued stagnation. The wiser approach inverts this pattern. You begin by changing what you can control directly: your thoughts, your emotional regulation, your focus, your self-perception. These changes do not guarantee specific outcomes, but they dramatically increase the probability of constructive action and improved results. This is not motivational rhetoric. This is practical psychology applied to financial behavior. If this truth resonates with you, write in the comments, "I am ready to change my financial mindset." Understanding the relationship between emotional states and financial choices requires examining how the brain operates under stress. When you feel anxious about money, your nervous system interprets this as a threat signal. The body responds by narrowing cognitive focus, reducing creative capacity, and prioritizing immediate relief over long-term strategy. This is why financial desperation so often leads to poor decisions. The mind under pressure cannot access the same range of options available to the calm mind. You accept unfavorable terms because ending the discomfort feels more urgent than negotiating better conditions. You avoid necessary conversations because confrontation feels overwhelming. You spend impulsively because the temporary relief outweighs future consequences. None of this reflects moral failure. It reflects predictable neurological responses to sustained stress. The problem deepens when stress becomes chronic. The mind adapts to operating in survival mode, and what began as a temporary response becomes a habitual state. You stop planning because planning feels futile. You stop seeking opportunity because disappointment feels inevitable. You stop believing change is possible because every attempt has reinforced the pattern. This is not pessimism. This is learned helplessness, shaped by repeated experience. Breaking this cycle requires more than positive thinking. It requires deliberately creating internal conditions that allow higher cognitive functions to operate. Calm is not a luxury. Calm is the foundation of intelligent action. When the nervous system feels safe, the mind can evaluate options, weigh consequences, and choose strategically. This is why emotional regulation is the first step toward financial improvement. Not because feelings do not matter, but because unregulated emotion consistently produces poor outcomes. Most financial patterns operate beneath conscious awareness. You believe you make deliberate choices, but research shows that much of human behavior follows automatic scripts formed through repetition and emotional conditioning. These scripts determine how you respond to money without requiring active thought. Someone raised in scarcity may hoard resources even when abundance is available. Someone who associated wealth with family conflict may unconsciously sabotage financial progress to avoid repeating painful dynamics. Someone taught that struggle equals virtue may resist ease because success feels morally suspect. These patterns do not announce themselves. They feel like truth, like personality, like inevitable limitations. Recognizing them requires careful self-observation over time. You must notice the recurring situations where behavior contradicts stated intention. You must examine the emotional responses that arise when financial opportunity or challenge appears. You must ask what you truly believe about money, success, and your own capacity, then compare those beliefs against the ones you publicly claim. This process is uncomfortable because it reveals inconsistencies you may have worked hard to avoid seeing. But discomfort is the price of growth. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. Every unconscious pattern continues operating until you bring it into awareness and decide whether it still serves you. Some beliefs formed in childhood protected you then, but limit you now. Some habits made sense in previous circumstances, but create problems in current conditions. Examining these patterns does not mean condemning yourself for having them. It means accepting responsibility for what you carry forward and what you leave behind. This examination is the bridge between understanding and transformation. Stillness is not passivity. It is not the absence of action or the avoidance of responsibility. Stillness is the deliberate pause that creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, higher reasoning replaces automatic reaction. Most people move through life in constant motion, responding immediately to every impulse, demand, and distraction. This creates a pattern of scattered energy and reactive decision-making. You check your bank account and immediately feel panic. You receive an unexpected bill and immediately spiral into catastrophic thinking. You hear about an opportunity and immediately doubt your worthiness to pursue it. These instant reactions bypass conscious evaluation. They are survival responses hardwired to protect you from danger, but they cannot distinguish between genuine threats and imagined ones. Financial anxiety triggers the same neurological pathways as physical danger, even though the nature of the threat is fundamentally different. Stillness interrupts this automatic sequence. When you create a deliberate pause before responding, you give the thinking mind time to engage. You can ask whether the initial reaction serves your long-term interest. You can evaluate whether the emotion matches the actual situation. You can choose a response that reflects your values rather than your fears. This practice does not eliminate emotion. It prevents emotion from hijacking decision-making before wisdom has the opportunity to speak. In practical terms, stillness might mean taking 3 deep breaths before making a financial decision. It might mean sleeping on a choice rather than committing immediately. It might mean writing out your thoughts before speaking in a difficult conversation. These small pauses accumulate into significant improvements in judgment over time. Stillness is how you reclaim agency from the automatic patterns that have governed your financial life. Most people treat money as a measure of personal worth. When income increases, they feel valuable. When expenses exceed earnings, they feel inadequate. This emotional attachment creates unnecessary suffering and distorts perception. Money is not a judgment of your character. Money is feedback about systems, habits, and alignment. When financial results disappoint you, the mature response is not shame. The mature response is analysis. What behaviors produced this outcome? What beliefs influenced those behaviors? What systems need adjustment? This shift from emotional reaction to analytical observation changes everything. You stop taking financial struggle personally, which means you stop defending your current approach and start examining it honestly. You recognize that poor results do not mean you are broken. They mean your current strategy is not producing desired outcomes. This is valuable information, not evidence of failure. The person who cannot separate self-worth from financial performance remains trapped in a cycle of shame and avoidance. They cannot look honestly at their situation because seeing the numbers feels like confronting personal inadequacy. This emotional charge prevents learning. You cannot improve what you refuse to examine. Reframing money as neutral feedback removes the emotional barrier to honest assessment. You can review spending patterns without self-hatred. You can acknowledge mistakes without spiraling into despair. You can ask for help without feeling diminished. This emotional neutrality is not coldness. It is maturity. It allows you to treat financial challenges the same way you would treat a physical injury, as something requiring attention and appropriate response, not as evidence that you deserve suffering. If you are beginning to question a belief or habit about money that has shaped your behavior, share it in the comments. Naming what you see is the first step toward changing it. I will now offer you a structured practice for mental alignment that can be completed within one day. This is not a guarantee of immediate income, but it is a method for creating internal clarity that improves all subsequent financial behavior. Begin your morning with 20 minutes of stillness. Sit quietly, without distraction. Observe your thoughts about money without trying to change them. Notice which beliefs surface. Notice which emotions arise. Write down what you observe without judgment or commentary. Simply record the truth of your current internal state. Next, identify one specific limiting belief that appeared during this observation. Choose the belief that feels most active in your current financial decisions. Write it clearly. I believe that money is scarce. I believe that success requires sacrifice of integrity. I believe that I am not capable of managing wealth. Whatever the belief, state it directly. Then write a more accurate, evidence-based alternative. Money flows through various channels I can learn to access. Success and integrity can coexist when I make conscious choices. I can develop financial capability through practice and learning. Spend the middle portion of your day noticing moments when the old belief attempts to govern your behavior. When you feel the impulse to avoid a financial conversation, pause and recognize the belief operating beneath the avoidance. When you dismiss an opportunity before evaluating it, pause and identify the fear driving that dismissal. Each time you catch the pattern, you weaken its automatic power. In the evening, review one concrete action you can take that aligns with the more accurate belief. This must be specific and achievable. Research one financial topic for 30 minutes. Schedule one conversation you have been avoiding. Review one expense category and identify one unnecessary recurring charge. Complete this action before the day ends. This practice creates immediate behavioral change rooted in awareness rather than motivation. Mental clarity does not remain abstract. It translates directly into observable changes in behavior and communication. When you operate from internal alignment, rather than reactive emotion, others notice. Your speech becomes more precise because you know what you actually think. Your boundaries become clearer because you understand what you will and will not accept. Your decisions become more consistent because they reflect stable principles rather than shifting moods. These changes create tangible results in the external world. The person who previously accepted unfavorable terms because they feared confrontation now negotiates calmly because they have separated their worth from the outcome of the negotiation. The person who avoided financial planning because it triggered shame now reviews their situation regularly because they have reframed money as neutral feedback. The person who missed opportunities because they moved too slowly from fear now evaluates options efficiently because they have practiced making decisions from clarity rather than anxiety. None of this happens through willpower alone. It happens through the cumulative effect of small aligned actions repeated over time. Each moment you choose awareness over automaticity strengthens the neural pathways that support better judgment. Each time you pause before reacting, you make the next pause easier. Each time you honor a boundary, you reinforce your capacity to maintain boundaries. This is how internal shifts become external results, not through dramatic transformation, but through consistent practice of behaviors that reflect your actual values and goals. You cannot control whether a specific opportunity materializes, but you can control whether you recognize it when it appears. You cannot control market conditions, but you can control how you respond to changing circumstances. You cannot control other people's decisions, but you can control the clarity and integrity with which you communicate your own position. These controllable factors accumulate into significant advantage over time. The final and most essential element of financial transformation is identity alignment. You can learn strategies, develop skills, and create plans. But if your core identity remains unchanged, old patterns will eventually reassert themselves. Sustainable progress requires becoming the kind of person who naturally makes choices that support financial health. This is not about pretending to be someone you are not. This is about consciously deciding which aspects of yourself you will cultivate and which you will allow to fade. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with money, that identity will find evidence to confirm itself. If you see yourself as someone learning to manage resources wisely, that identity will seek evidence of growth and capability. Identity shapes attention. What you believe about yourself determines what you notice, what you remember, and what you pursue. Adopting the identity of financial responsibility means treating yourself as trustworthy. It means keeping commitments you make to yourself about money. It means following through on small promises, reviewing accounts when you said you would, saving the amount you specified, having the conversation you scheduled. Each kept commitment strengthens the identity. Each broken commitment weakens it. This is why grand resolutions so often fail. They demand too much change too quickly from an identity that has not yet developed the capacity to sustain that change. Begin with behaviors so small that follow-through feels almost inevitable, then gradually increase complexity as the identity strengthens. Over time, financial responsibility stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like natural expression of who you are. This is the difference between temporary motivation and lasting transformation. Motivation fades. Identity endures. If you are ready to move forward with this understanding, write in the comments, "I commit to thinking and acting with financial clarity." Let this be your declaration that the work begins now.